Hey guys, and thank you so much for tuning in to check out more and more tales to give you goosebumps. Reader beware, you're in for 10 scares. So today we are going to read Matt's Lunchbox. My name is Matt Green, and I don't usually forget things. But this happens to be the first day of spring, and baseball tryouts are this afternoon. So is it my fault I left my dumb lunchbox on the bus? I didn't even realize it until I reached my house. I was heading to my room to find my mitt. On the way, I passed Mum in the kitchen. "Hi Matt," she called out. "How was your day?" "Fine," I said. I was thinking about how hard it would be to beat out Todd Fisher for catcher. "How about a snack?" Mum asked. "I'm not hungry, Mum." "Are you sure, Matt?" she called after me. "How about some cookies?" "No, thanks." Mum is always trying to force me to eat. She thinks I'm too skinny. I ran to my room, grabbed my mitt, and headed for the front door. In the kitchen, Mum waved an apple at me. "You really should eat something," she said. "Okay," I shoved the apple into my jacket pocket. "Did you finish your lunch today?" "Oh, no," I suddenly remembered my lunchbox. "Sorry, I just left my lunchbox on the bus." Mum frowned. "Can you get it back?" "I don't think so," I sighed. "There's no such thing as bus lost and found." Mum shook her head. "I guess I'll have to buy you another one then." I left for tryouts and didn't think about my lunchbox again. Then today, Mum shoved a bright red plastic rectangular box into my hands. "Surprise!" "What's this?" I asked. "A new lunchbox," she replied. I made a face. "Mum, you call this a lunchbox? What's wrong with it?" I pointed to the stupid cartoon on the front. "This is for a little kid. I don't want a lunchbox with flying monsters on it. Everyone will make fun of me. Why couldn't you just get me a plain lunchbox like the last one?" Mum frowned. "This happens to be the only lunchbox I could find this time of year," she said. "Every place is sold out. I went to 4 stores. It was so dumb looking. The monsters were about the size of parakeets. Each one had a set of leathery wings and long, sharp teeth. They reminded me of bats or gargoyles. I took the lunchbox to my room and slammed the door behind me. I threw myself down on the bed and stared angrily at the picture on the front. The 3 monsters glared back at me. Their red bug eyes seemed to glitter and flash. Their jagged teeth and tiny clawed hands and feet looked as sharp as razors. Then I noticed something else. The little creatures were flying out of the lunchbox exactly the same as the one I was holding. And they were chasing some poor kid across a kitchen. His mouth was wide open, screaming. A strange feeling came over me. Maybe I shouldn't open this lunchbox, I thought. It was giving me the creeps. It's just a dumb old lunchbox, I told myself. I slowly cracked open the lid. I heard a tiny voice. "We're hungry, Matt. Let us out." "Huh?" I slammed the lid shut. The voice stopped. My hands were shaking now. Something inside that lunchbox knew my name? How could that be? I put the lunchbox on the shelf above my desk. Then I grabbed my mitt and ran out to baseball practice. When I reached the field, Coach Goldberg waved me over. "Congratulations, Green," he said. "You're starting catcher." "I am? Wow!" I quickly put on my mask and pads and forgot all about my lunchbox. Around midnight, a noise woke me up. I sprang up in bed. What is it? Something was knocking inside my lunchbox. I stared in disbelief. The lunchbox was still right where I left it, on the shelf above my desk, but now it was actually shaking and moving. Who is it? What do you want?" I choked out. The knocking grew louder. "Let us out, Matt," a voice cried from inside. "We're hungry." I pulled my covers up over my chin. I was too afraid to move. The lunchbox rocked harder. It edged forward on the shelf until it half hung over it. Then it toppled off. It smashed onto my desk with a loud thud. I gasped. The lid popped open and 3 monsters flew out. "Wah! Help!" I shouted. The monsters zoomed toward me, flapping their leathery wings. "Chow time!" screamed the biggest one. The monsters circled closer. They all had jagged teeth and crinkled skin. "Food! We want food!" the big one screamed. "I don't have any food," I cried. A middle-sized monster flipped a few somersaults in the air. He pointed at me and laughed. "You don't get it, do you? You have to feed us, Matt." He chomped his teeth and rolled his red bug eyes backwards. "Whoever opens the lunchbox owns us. We belong to you now." "Yeah, that's right," a little one screeched. "And we're starved." They roared over to my dresser. "Hey, what are you doing?" I yelled. "Stop that." The three monsters used their claws to pry open my top dresser drawer. "Where's our food, Matt?" the big one demanded. They started tossing my clothes onto the floor. "Where do you hide your candy?" the little one said. "I want candy." "I don't hide candy," I shouted. "Liar!" the middle one yelled. He rolled his bug eyes backwards again, then curled his top lip back. "Let's try the closet." "Stop it," I cried. They shot inside. I ducked as an old Monopoly game and a pair of sneakers zinged past. A squeaky voice cried out, "Food!" Seconds later, they were dragging my bag of leftover Halloween candy out. I forgot I even had it. The monsters threw the bag on the floor and gobbled up the few stale pieces that were there, including the wrappings. "Where's the rest?" the big one demanded. "I didn't get enough," the little one whined. "I never get enough." "There isn't any more," I said. "Please stop." The monsters turned angrily to me. "You have to feed us," the middle one said. "Now." "But I don't have any food," I told them. "Then we'll eat you," the biggest one shrieked. He charged toward me with his mouth wide open. "No!" I raised my arm to try and stop him. He sank his fangs into my arm. "Ow!" I screamed. He pulled his fangs from my skin. I could see a gash where he bit me. It was serious. I ran out the door and down the hall. "Mum!" I screamed. "Help!" The big one cut me off. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." He bared his teeth again. "Be right back," I said. I raced to the kitchen and threw open the cupboards. Crackers, cookies, pretzels, cereal. I grabbed everything I could find, including the rice cakes. I dashed back to my room and threw the food on my bed. "Here, now leave me alone." "Food!" they cried. They fell into it greedily. The big one started shoving chocolate chip cookies into his mouth. "Stop being such a pig," the little one screamed. "You always hog the food." The middle one was cramming pretzels down his throat so fast I thought he'd choke. It took them less than 3 minutes to finish everything. Then, as soon as they were done, they quickly vanished. Breathing hard, I stood and waited for a moment. Were they going to come back? When they didn't return, I crept into bed and pulled the covers up to my head. The lunchbox was still sitting on my desk. I watched it until I fell asleep. The next morning, I tiptoed over the lunchbox and peeked inside. Empty. I heard my mother calling me. "Matt, breakfast!" With a flap of wings, 3 monsters came flying out of my closet. "Feed us! Feed us!" the little one whined. The middle one was spinning somersaults in the air. "I love bacon and eggs, Matt. Is that what we're having? Huh? I ran down the hall, the monsters close behind me. "Mum!" I yelled. I burst into the kitchen and ran to her side. "They're after me!" "Who?" "They are!" I spun around and pointed at nothing. "I don't see anything, Matt," Mum said. "Nothing there." Mum pointed to a plate of scrambled eggs and bacon in front of me. "Sit down and eat your breakfast before it gets cold." I slumped into my chair, picked up my fork, and started to take a bite of egg. The little monster swooped down from the fridge and landed on my fork. "Hi, Matt," he whispered. "Don't tell Fatso I'm starting without him." I gasped, "But that's my—" Before I could finish, the little monster gobbled up my bite and everything else on my plate. "Mum, look!" I shouted. Too late. Mum turned around. The monster had already disappeared. She gave me a huge smile. "Matt, done already?" My words rushed out. "Mum, I didn't eat it. It was the monsters. They came with my lunchbox. If I don't feed them, they're going to eat us." Mum gave me a hug. "It's okay," she said, laughing. "I'm glad to see you're finally getting a good appetite. Now I know who sneaked in here last night and ate all those crackers and cookies. At noon, I sat down for lunch in the cafeteria. My lunchbox was empty, licked clean. I slammed the lid back down. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten since dinner the night before. What was I going to do? By afternoon, I was really hungry. I couldn't wait to go home and have a snack. When I stepped off the bus, I ran as fast as I could into the house. I threw open the cabinets and pulled down a huge bag of chips. I ripped open the bag, but just as my fingers hit the first chip, the lunchbox monsters showed up. No, I cried, backing up. Stay away. We're hungry, Matt, the middle one said. I clutched the bag to my chest. No, it's mine. You had lunch. Drop the bag, Matt, the big monster yelled. He started jabbing at my fingers with the sharp points of his teeth. Ow! I dropped the bag on the floor, spilling chips everywhere. The monsters moved in. Seconds later, the chips were gone. Please, I begged, just let me have a little something. The middle monster turned another somersault and laughed. Sorry, Matt. When we're full, it's your turn. And we're never full, the little one laughed. Tired and weak, I dragged myself up to my room. If only I could eat. The next thing I knew, Mum was calling me to dinner. I must have been so weak from hunger that I fell asleep. I managed to make it into the kitchen. Mum had cooked up another feast. Juicy roast beef, scalloped potatoes, green beans, rolls, fresh apple pie. I smacked my lips. Slid into my chair smiling. Food, food, food. Go ahead and start, Mum called from across the kitchen. I hungrily picked up my fork and started to dig into my potatoes. Suddenly, the big monster was flapping over my fork. He swooped down and ate my potatoes. Beside him, the little monster gobbled up my beans and the middle monster grabbed the roast beef and swallowed it whole. Mum turned around. She glanced down at my empty plate. Would you like seconds? I had an idea. Mum, I'll take seconds if you come eat with me. The monsters wouldn't be able to steal my food if Mum was watching. No, dear, I had a big lunch. I'm going to eat later. Mum, please, I begged, come sit with me. Honey, I'm really busy. Fine, I shouted. Then I'll just starve to death, okay? I stomped upstairs and threw myself on my bed. I stared at the ceiling and thought about hamburgers. Around midnight, my growling stomach woke me up. I got out of bed and sneaked down the hall in the dark to the kitchen. Maybe the monsters were asleep. I tore open the cupboard and pulled out a giant bag of cookies. Before I even opened it, the big monster swooped in and snatched it out of my hand. No, I screamed. Why can't you leave me alone? You've eaten plenty today. He jammed a fistful of cookies into his mouth. What are you talking about? He said. All I had was potatoes. Stop! I screamed. I grabbed the cookie bag and ran. The other two flew down from the cupboards and tried to pull the bag from my hands. No, please, I beg, if I don't eat soon. But they took the bag and gobbled it up. Upset and weak, I dragged myself back to bed. In the morning, I felt so exhausted, I didn't even want to get out of bed. Even dressing was tough. Finally, I pulled myself to the breakfast table. Mum had fixed French toast and sausage. I could see Mum was watching me as I sat down. What's wrong, Matt? She said. You look awful. I haven't eaten for 2 days, I cried. I told you, there are little monsters who came from my lunchbox and they won't let me eat. Now, Matt, we both know that's not true. She put her hand on my forehead. No fever. It was hopeless. She was never going to believe me. No one was. I watched the monsters enjoy my breakfast, then I picked up my backpack. I was so weak, I wasn't even sure I would make it to the bus stop. I had to get rid of the monsters before it was too late. But how? Suddenly, I remembered something. They had said they belonged to the person who owns the lunchbox. If only there was some way to get rid of the lunchbox. At the corner, I saw a sign in the neighbour's yard. 5 family tag sale today. Then I noticed a sign on one of the tag tables saying everything here 50 cents. Maybe this was my answer. No one would even know. I walked past the 50-cent table a couple of times until I was sure that no one was watching. I slowly reached into my backpack and pulled out the lunchbox. One more glance around. Okay, now! I dropped the lunchbox on the table. Then I ran to some nearby bushes and hid. A few minutes later, I saw a lady pick up the lunchbox. She turned it over in her hands a few times. Would she buy it? Come on, lady, 50 cents. It's a real bargain. She took 2 quarters out of her wallet. She handed the money to the cashier. Thank you, the cashier said. Enjoy your lunchbox. I couldn't believe it. It was that easy. I was rid of my lunchbox. No monsters to steal my food. I was free. Free. I turned around. Using my last bit of strength, I slumped back to my house. Weak and dazed, I threw open the refrigerator door and collapsed on the floor. I reached up, grabbed a pear, and shoved it in my mouth. I began to chew, and I swallowed a bite, and then another, and another. I ate until I was sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe how great everything tasted. I had to walk to school because I missed my bus, but so what? Later, during dinner, I was reaching for my 4th helping when the doorbell rang. Mum went to answer and I heard her say, "Murray, what a nice surprise." My Uncle Murray is Mum's brother. He's a travelling salesman. Whenever he's in town, he stops by. Uncle Murray came into the kitchen carrying his briefcase and a large plastic bag. "Hi, Matt, I bought you something." "I hope it's something to eat," I joked. "Sort of," Uncle Murray said. "Your mum mentioned you lost your lunchbox the other day, so..." I frantically waved my arms. No, I don't need a lunchbox. No lunchbox." "Matt," Mum cried, "what's gotten into you?" "Don't worry, Matt," Uncle Murray said. "Your mum told me she bought you a great lunchbox already." But he reached into the plastic bag and pulled out a red thermos. "She said you still needed to find the matching thermos." My mouth dropped open. "Can you believe it, Matt?" Mum said. "It's the very same design as your lunchbox." I stared in horror. No, it couldn't be. As I stared, the little monster peeked out and winked at me. "Boy, am I thirsty," he whispered. Wow, that was a spooky story. Probably. But if you have been enjoying the Goosebumps stories, just know that there are a whole bunch more right here on the channel to check out. So I'd love it, really love it, if you hung around just a little bit longer and listened to one more. And if you want to hear some more spooky stories coming out in the future, definitely hit that subscribe button as well. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you back for some more leftovers. Cheers, guys.